This study examines sensory motor control in autism and how it's dynamically adjusted according to expectations about environmental volatility. Recent research suggests that these mechanisms may be atypical in autism, and we wanted to test these in a sensory motor task where autistic people can sometimes experience movement-related difficulties. Specifically, we asked our participants to hit balls towards a target whilst we tracked their hand movements, their head movements, and their eye movements within a head-mounted display. Here we use virtual reality to systematically manipulate uncertainty and volatility over time. We did this through manipulating ball bounciness. So on some trials, participants would get a normal ball that bounced in a way that we would expect in the real world. However, on other trials, we gave them an unexpectedly bouncy ball that doesn't interact with anything like we would in the real world. And what we did is we systematically varied the probability of getting a normal or bouncy ball over time. So, in the stable block of trials, the probability of getting a normal ball was fixed at 67%. So at any given time, this was the probability that you'd get a normal ball. However, in the volatile block of trials, these probabilities were unpredictably changeable. So at some periods of time, you'd get a high number of bouncy balls. At other periods, you get a high number of normal balls. And these probabilities were switching in an unpredictable fashion. What we found is that generally participants were pretty good at adjusting between these contrasting environmental conditions. However, autistic people, as you can see in this figure here, appeared to struggle under the more volatile task conditions. Our gaze data suggested that this might be because autistic people tend to overestimate volatility in the world around them. So if we look at this graph here, what we can see on the y-axis is the gaze position of participants during the trial. And basically, a higher value here denotes a higher gaze fixation. A lower value dictates that participants are looking closer to the floor. And what we see at time point 0 here, this is the time point where the ball was bouncing, what we tend to see is that the pink curve is generally a little bit higher than the blue curve. This suggests that autistic people were looking a little bit higher and preparing for the unexpectedly bouncy balls more often than the neurotypical participants. Now, this tendency to expect the unexpected was also reflected in their kinematic data and also in some of their behavioural surprise data, which we also took from eye tracking analysis. Neurotypical participants sometimes did this, but only in volatile task conditions. So what this data suggests is that autistic people may overestimate volatility in the world around them, and that these tendencies to expect the unexpected may be contributing to sensory motor difficulties in the disorder. Further research is required to look at the mechanisms driving these so that future evidence-based practice can be developed.